Parsha Vayigash, when the final climax happens with Yosef and his brothers. So it says, when he finally, we're going to go into a few different things over here. It's basically, Yosef, what he first does is he makes sure before he reveals himself, he makes sure that all the Egyptians should be away, right? This is something we're going to touch upon later, very importantly, and with the importance of that. So he does it because he doesn't want them to be embarrassed, right? That's the surface level of it. And then when he says, and he's like really so emotional, and how can he do it? But then he finally says the words Ani Yosef, and then afterwards, when he cried, it says that the words are Vayishmu Mitzrayim V'Yishma Beis Paro, that the entire Mitzrayim heard it, and then Vayishmu Beis Paro, even and the palace also heard his cries. So I would say that the question when Yosef revealed himself, right?
When he cried out
Yosef.
to his brothers.
Yosef cried.
Yeah, because he finally revealed himself. He was very emotional this whole time. And there was a few times he was emotional before too, but he wasn't revealing himself yet. So
He was holding it in.
he was holding it in. So anyway, so the point is that you would think that when Yosef reveals himself, and he's going to, who's going to hear first? He would say, I would think that first base Paro would hear, because he was probably close to the palace of Paro. I mean, I don't know exactly, but I would think that he's probably closer to the palace of Paro than the whole Mitzrayim would hear it, right? So why does it say Mitzrayim first and then Paro? That's one of the questions. But also, why was it so important that Yosef made sure to be totally alone? Because we have to think about the fact that his brothers weren't happy with him, especially Yehuda, right? Yehuda he threatened that he was going to take down the whole Mitzrayim. So
Sounds like me.
Right? We know about these Yehudas.
Yeah.
So anyway, so so therefore, it was a danger. He put himself in danger, right? Yosef being alone with his brothers was in big danger, but he still did it. I guess we could say that he has this from his mother. His mother was willing to give up her life so that her sister shouldn't be embarrassed, right? So he too is willing to risk his own life so that his brothers shouldn't be embarrassed. Okay. But let's go into what the Nesivos Shalom says. Nesivos Shalom says that that's his brother, and they weren't seeing it that it was his brother the whole time, that they were his brothers. And it was embarrassing to them that he's telling them.
They wanted to accentuate that. They already felt that embarrassment. What you're saying.
No, before he revealed himself, he told all the Egyptians to leave, all his guards, then.
Egyptians.
Okay, so so it says, "Vayomer Yosef el Achav ani Yosef v'lo yachlu echav le'anoso so ki nivelo mipanav." Right? It says his brothers weren't able to answer him, to respond, because they were so embarrassed, they were so humiliated, and the Medrash even says that oy lanu miyom adin, oy lanu miyom atechacha, that if they were embarrassed, that he was the youngest. Well, Binyamin was younger, but he was the youngest of all of them that were there, besides Binyamin, and they all were embarrassed. The reason why they were humiliated, obviously, this doesn't include Binyamin, because Binyamin had nothing to be humiliated for, right? When Binyamin found out that was Yosef, it wasn't something that he had to be humiliated for, because he didn't do anything wrong to him, right? So therefore, it's talking about he is the youngest of the Shvatim, and still they are totally embarrassed from him. So imagine what it would be if we come in front of Hashem and we find out, we see the clarity of what we did wrong. The same way that they saw, in clarity what they did wrong, it would be really, really, this woe is to us. That's what the lashon of the Medrash is. So now, if we look at the psukim, we see that first he said, "I am Yosef." That's all he said. 2 words. Ani Yosef. In English, it's 3 words, but in Hebrew, it's 2 words. Right? Ani Yosef. Right? And then afterwards, he starts explaining that you sold me to Mitzrayim, this and that. So you would think that they would be humiliated after he explains himself that you sold me, and no, the humiliation came right after he just said those 2 words, "I am Yosef," right? So the question is why? So there's different levels of understanding. What's the problem?
Just nothing to do with.
Oh, okay. It's all good. So, so it says that if we think about it, when somebody goes and explains something to someone, and they explain, they know they might have done something wrong. Oh, if I, the kind of, apology where, I'm sorry, if I may have hurt you, I'm sorry. It's like not really the full apology, right?
Sorry for hurting
Right.
you, but also when
right.
you said that.
Right, exactly. Like, or a but afterwards, or however, this and that, right? So it's not the real thing. Like, for instance, I happen to imagine somebody goes ahead and tells someone who's going through a terrible time, I know about this, and I don't worry, it's not that bad, and this and that. That's not going to help them at that point. And also, especially if they belittle it and they compare it to something that they went through that is nowhere near, right? So in order for them to really understand it, they have to try to go into a person's shoes and to really feel it, what he feels like. And so then their sorry will be a more complete sorry. But then there's a whole nother level, okay? And the level that we're talking about over here is the level of where he says the words Ani Yosef, where the reason why on one level there's different explanations, but one way we can explain why is it that they didn't recognize Yosef. So yes, he had a longer beard. He was different. It was 20 years later. He didn't have a beard before this whole thing, but still, come on. I mean, they should have noticed. But in their minds, there was no way in the world that he could be forget about, normal person. At best, he would be a slave. There's no way that he could be a king. And when they came to look for him, telling their father they went to get food, but they were coming to look for him, they went in the lowest of the lowest places because that's where they thought he was. And, he's the slaves. It wasn't even a question. There was no havamina in their mind to think that maybe he would be, even the minister of a king, let alone the viceroy, which basically he was basically the king. He was running the whole empire. So it was so beyond their imagination that there was no way for them to even ponder the thought. So that's one thing. So when he said Ani Yosef, and he spoke to them in their language for the first time in Lashon Kodesh, the holy tongue, so therefore everything clicked, and in such a way that it was like a geyser, like going all over. There was no way that they could deny it, and everything made sense. But it was humiliating. It was terribly humiliating, and that's the same type of thing when we, after 120 years, we're going to come and we're going to see the truth, and everything's going to be right in front of us, so clear that it can be very, very scary even to think about it. So now we're going to go into the point of, yes, it was very dangerous what he did to tell everybody to leave, right? But he knew, even though, yes, I'm sure that, he didn't want to embarrass them, and it could be that he got that from his mother, as we said before. However, there's something even more profound over here, that in that was on a physical level. But on a spiritual level, this is the first time in more than 2 decades that all the Shvatim, all the tribes, were together as one. Now, okay, that could sound very, lovey-dovey and, brotherly love, but it's much more than that, because if we look, there's different terufei shemos. How do you say terufei shemos? The permutations, what?
Combination of names.
The combinations or the permutations of Hashem's name is the letters are spelled differently, according 12 different ways, and it's according to the 12 different Shvatim, the 12 tribes. So the Shvatim are really part of God and everything. So them, and that was done.
Choshen.
Right, it's in the Choshen, it's written in the Choshen, the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, it's written their names, it's all part of Kabbalistic ways of what Hashem is. Yes, and the stone, the precious stones, the precious gems that he wore, right? So therefore, this was very, very special time, and they needed this. This was very much needed, and and Hashem wanted this. Hashem wanted this, and Yosef knew this. This has to be done. It has to be. They have to be reunited in a proper way, and really deeply, not just like let's make an apology, let's make all good, kumbaya, but it's not real on the inside, people. So that's why this whole process had to happen. So the Nesivos Shalom brings that if we look at the pasuk, something very interesting is said. It says, "V'lo amad ish itoi b'svada Yosef el echad," that no one stood when Yosef announced himself and exposed himself to his brothers, right? When he finally revealed himself to his brothers, no one was standing there with him. So what do you mean no one? The brothers were there, right? The Torah is not going to say something that doesn't, so we could say that it means no one else, right? It was all, but the brothers were there, but obviously no one else was there. But he's saying no. He says he takes a pasuk in when it comes to the Kohen Gadol. I think it's in Parsha Achemos, when the Kohen Gadol does his avodah Yom Kippur. It's got to be in Achemos, that it says that v'chol adam lo yeh ba'ol moed b'voil l'chaper b'kodesh, that no person should be there when he comes to the Mishkan to go, that the whole way has to be cleared. There has to be nobody there, and he can go straight into the Kodesh and then into the Kodesh Kodashim, and no one is there, right? So it says, the wording there is that lo yeh ba'ol moed, kol adam, not one person should be in the ol moed. That means not even the Kohen Gadol himself. How does that mean? How is that possible? Kohen Gadol was the one going in, but he came to such a high level of holiness, of kedusha, that all physicality was thrown off. There was nothing. There was no physicality. It was only holiness. And because it was only holiness, therefore, he had none of his, there was no yesh, there was no essence of himself as a physical being. It was only as a spirituality. It's only his spirituality that was there. His pure essence of his neshama was there and nothing else. So therefore, it's true when it says v'chol adam, not any person, no person was there, right? It was because he was like a malach, he was like an angel at that moment, okay? When he was doing this avodah, So the same thing over here with Yosef, that no one was there when he revealed himself. It means that they were all like one, and they were all on such a high level, because here it was. What did they need to do? They need to come to the realization that they sinned against Yosef, And they did, right? And they all came together as one unity, and therefore they were at that high level as if they were only angels and not any people there. Okay? So now another explanation when he says the words afterwards, Mechartemosi, that you sold me to Mitzrayim, we have to understand we know that Yosef, his midah was Yesod, right? Yesod is the foundation, that's the holiest of all the midos of the Shvatim, right? And that's, by the way, why it seems that Yaakov and Yosef, before Yosef was taken and sold by the brothers, it seems that Yosef was doing things that were egging them on, and Yaakov wasn't really being so helpful, or he was helping that in that way. And it seems to be, why would you do that? And especially with the giving the Ksanos Pasim, one of the reasons why Yaakov really wanted to give the Ksanos Pasim, even though it looked the coat of multicolors, that even though it looked like he was playing favorites, but Yosef had a special learning session with him. And he wanted all the brothers to have that learning session too, and he would get them all coat of multicolors too. But it was even more than that. He was trying to show them that Yosef's midah of Yesod was, all their attributes that they had, their special things, that uniqueness they had, was very, very special and very important in Judaism. But Yosef was the most important, and that's what Yaakov was trying to show them. And the midah of Yesod is how it plays out is to having the basis, even the base, our most base level of lust, desire should only be for Hashem, right? Now, where did when it says Mechartem Mosi Mitzrayim, right? Why did he have to go and spell it out? Mechartem Mosi could have just said, you sold me. Why did I have to say you sold me to Egypt? Because the point over here is that you didn't just sell me anywhere. You sold me to the worst of the worst places, right? And when it was such a bad place that here who am I and what's my desire supposed to be only for Hashem? You put me in the worst of the worst, the epitome of tuma, of impurity.
The epitome.
That's right. Right. So, and this can remind us back what we were learning a couple of weeks ago in Parsha Vayigash, where we talked about in Parsha Vayigash, we talked about Shechem, and how Shechem, it uses the languages that Hashem has love towards us. And we learned that from the whole story of Shechem, which seems to be, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, what? Like how could it be going so low and using such a holy thing for something so low? And the answer we talked about was that Shechem had the ability to take that, what he did, and actually use it for good. He could have gone ahead and taking that lust, that desire that he had, and waited and converted and married her properly, instead of just going according to his lust and his base materialistic desire, and go ahead and he did a horrible thing. So therefore we see that the same thing over here is when a person is realizing that what they could have been and how low they were, that really wakes them up. And how does that happen? Like we're talking about, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows himself, when we see Hashem in such a way, after 120, when we see everything's going to be so clear, and we're not only going to see the truth, we're also going to see our abilities, what we could have been doing, where we could have reached, and what places we actually, where our potential, our true potential could have been. So one way to
Mitigate that.
mitigate that, or to, help us out to be able to realize, have a good judgment. If there's a skula that, as we mentioned this, one of the schools we mentioned before is that if the Chafetz Chaim used to go ahead and before he went to sleep every night, he would have 3 chairs in front of him and make as if it's in front of a Jewish court, and he's going through the sins that he did throughout the day. And he did this every night, right? So there's, he would go ahead and he would, so when a person does that and he speaks to Hashem before he goes to sleep, and he says, I know I did this wrong, I did that wrong, right? Having a little bit of a spodus, right, with Hashem, then Hashem, when the prosecutor, the angel, comes and says, this and this person did, Hashem says, no, he told me already. Go away. I know about it already, right? And also another thing is, which is very important, which is actually what the Ariya Kadosh, another one of our neighbors down the hill, right? What the Ariya Kadosh says is that before we daven in the morning, we should say that I'm accepting upon myself to judge everyone favorably and to love, and that we accept upon ourselves loving each and every fellow Jew, and we accept upon ourselves to judge everyone favorably. So if I am going out of my way to judge everyone favorably, so Hashem will do the same. The way that I deal with other Jews, Hashem will deal with us. So it's like the pasuk says, Hashem tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Hashem is your shadow. Hashem is our shadow. Exactly the way we deal with things, Hashem is going to deal with us. So that is right. There's always hope. There's always hope. Remember we said the person, the worst thing a Jew can do is lose hope. Not allowed to lose hope.
I know.
Right. There's always hope. Oh, definitely. It is scary. Yeah, we should be scared about it, but we have to do our effort, and Hashem doesn't judge us by the results. He judges us by our effort. So if we're doing our effort and we're doing the best we can, and we really then, and together with judging people favorably, hopefully we'll be fine. So then he before he ends off with something very powerful at the end, he also brings it to more practicality of, as he usually does, Shabbos. Okay, every Shabbos, the Zohar Kodesh says that if we take the word Shabbos and we mix the letters, we will see boshes, humility. Okay, so actually, I'm sorry, shame, embarrassment, right? That Shabbos is the letters of shame or embarrassment. So if you mix up the letters, it's the same letters. So the question is why? How does that make any sense? And because usually we would think that Shabbos is a time that we enjoy, Shabbos is a time that we get at a higher level. What's going on? Why should we be embarrassed? And the answer he brings is that if we come to a level, to such a high level, a holy level of Shabbos, then we're able to, that level is able to show us where we're really supposed to be. It's be able to reveal to us our true potential, and therefore we could end up becoming very embarrassed at where we should be, where we should be at that point.
Every single week.
Right.
Shabbos is over.
So
Down to
therefore it's the same. It's just like the Nesivos Shalom says in another area. He says, how we have a guy like to be able to do things for us for Shabbos, right? So he says it's a Shabbos Jew. Instead of a Shabbos guy, we have a Shabbos Jew. What does that mean? That a person throughout the week doesn't really feel like he's a Jew because he's so busy with stress, this and that. But in Shabbos, he feels like a Jew, right? And that we have that level of feeling like you're a Jew, and therefore we can really tap into things that we can't do throughout the week. And because we know that, as the holy Rav Aaron McCarlin says, Shabbos noim haneshamos, the Shabbos is the the pleasantness of the souls. Oinig aruchos va'edin and fashos. It's really the very, very, very holy and high and special kedusha to good time. And also in Tashem Shabbos Raglecha, right? That if we have to, there's a certain thing we say from psukim from Yeshaya Navi right before Kiddush on Shabbos day, and it talks about how everything that we do on Shabbos has to be different. The way we walk, the way we talk, everything has to be different. So, and then we realize that it should be more relaxed and more, everything should be different. Right, and we shouldn't. That's speech, and then even our walk shouldn't be, everything should be different. Everything should be more special. We should.
Week.
Pep in your shops or something, you mean?
No,
Opposite. Take out the pep.
Oh, more relaxed.
No running. Yeah.
right,
As much as you can, try to glide.
right. Hover. So
Just do the moonwalk.
the kedusha they go on, right? Okay,
Right.
so
When we're going forward.
so
Service.
even when it comes to success, okay, as I think I might have mentioned to somebody, you might have heard this. I saw it in the Torah Ladas where it says, I don't remember which parsha he brought it down. He says that when a person gets success, and it gets praised from his success or whatever. So basically, he's actually he actually should be embarrassed. He shouldn't be proud of himself. There's no pride. Why? Why not? I did something. I worked for it. I get success for it, and now, I should feel a little tap on the back.
You do it.
Right? So he gives it. You're right, but how do we understand it? And how do we understand it? So the way we no. So
Oh, sorry. I think we could take a picture after. I'm taking a whole selfie, just me.
anyway, so basically, you gave a beautiful. I think it was brought down by a friend of mine, Matis Blum, but I don't remember in whose name he brought it in. He says that the parable, to be able to understand this, is like this: there's a king that brings over one of his close friends, and he says, maybe he was a minister before or whatever. He says, I need to speak to you. I have to speak to you in my private chambers. I have to have a special meeting with you. So he goes ahead and he has this meeting, and he tells him, you're my dear friend, and I feel that you're the only one I can trust to do this special job. I have a country that's far out that I just took over, and I need you to be the governor of that country. I need you to govern that country. I'm going to give you everything you need, and I want you to do it. Speak with your wife and let me know what she says. So he goes back and he speaks with his wife. His wife says fine, and all of a sudden, a few months later, he gets a telegram or whatever it was at that time. Right, he gets a letter from the king stating that he's coming, and he wants to come as a commoner. So he's going to go around with him, but he's going to go around as a commoner because he wants to really see how everything's been. And if he's going to come as a king, he's not going to be able to see everything, right?
Undercover boss.
Right, the undercover boss, exactly. So therefore, he goes ahead, and when he comes, he's going in the special carriage that was given to him by the king, the governor's going, right? So he's going in this carriage, and the king is in the back, right? And this guy is in the front, and there's a driver, the whole thing, and everybody who's coming, like he comes all, every day he comes around, he goes around and he makes sure things are done, and the streets are cleaned and all these different things. Everything's, that he normally does. The king wants him to do everything normal. But what happens on a regular day, as this day too, they all give this governor cover. They give him honor, right? And they're saying, and they're bowing down to him and this and that. And this governor is terribly embarrassed because the king, they should be giving the honor to the king, not to him, right? He feels totally embarrassed, but he can't say anything because the king wants to be undercover, right? So this is the same thing over here. Anytime we have success, we have to realize that it's not me, it's all Hashem. And anytime somebody's giving me, praise for it, I should say, no, it's not me, it's all Hashem. Right? Like Avram, did every time he had guests and they were thanking him, right? So, so he ends off with his last thing that he says is what we talked about when it says, Vayishmu Mitzrayim, Vayishma Beis Paro, that the Mitzrayim heard, and even the house of power, the palace of power, also heard the cry that when Yosef was, when he revealed himself to his brothers. So it says that there's different types of understanding of what we have and what we are supposed to do in life, and we can have an understanding where it's more of a surface. I know I should do this, but I'm not. Instead, I'm doing something else, and there's different levels. But then there's even a deeper level of like really permeating myself and really understanding really deep down, and that is where we really should be, right? That's really where we should be, and the inner is just like the reason why it says, he doesn't say it outright, but I believe it makes sense. Why does it say that the whole Mitzrayim heard, and then it says the house of power heard? Because Mitzrayim was the epitome of impurity. But what was the epitome of the epitome? Was the palace of power. So at first, it went from one level to the next, that it was able to even be in the epitome of impurity, but then it went to the even deeper, the lower and the lowest of the lower, right? And that's what a person has to understand, that we can come to that with proper, understanding, intent, and really understanding what our life is about, and having that awakening, not only in our heart and in our mind, but also it will go into each and every part of our bodies. That really should truly be in a way that it says V'haya Ekev Tishmaun, right? And it says V'haya Ekev Tishmaun in one of the parshas in Devarim, the third parsha in Devarim. It says Ekev V'haya Ekev Tishmaun, and if you will listen, right? Where the Mefarshim bring down that Ekev Tishmon, and that what it's talking about is your heel, right? Ekev means a heel. It could have used Vaya Im Tishmon, and it will be if you listen. Why does it have to say Ekev? The word Ekev means heel, but it also can mean the word if, right? Or when. When you listen, then you will get all these blessings. So and so he explains that, well, there's one of the reasons that he explains it in Ekev. He says that the letters Ekev. Well, let's first say, I'm sorry. The first explanation is what Rashi says. Rashi says the explanation is that the mitzvos that we think are not so important, that I would really step on them with my foot, my heel, because they're not as important as Shabbos, as kashrus, or something like that. So but if I'm doing those mitzvahs too, then therefore I'm going to get even those mitzvahs, then I'm going to get the blessing. But the Nesivos Shalom says, he takes the word Ekev, and he's, I forget where he brings it down from. Ekev is Ayin Kuf Vez, which is Kadesh Atzmcha B'Mutter. It is the acronym that you should make yourself holy with the things that are permissible to you, meaning that I'm taking something that, yes, I could have I had already 2 plates of cholent, but now I'm going to take a third plate. Do I have to have it? Do I need it? No, but I'm just going to, so to hold myself back, and that's a way to uplift myself.
The last bite.
Right, exactly, like the last bite of food, right? To be able to uplift myself, to be able to make myself more holy. So it says that here he's saying that it's by Ekev Tishmon. Now he brings another acronym for a different word in that phrase. Vaya Ekev Tishmon Bahaya is the same letters of Yismuch HaShamayim V'Sagel Haaretz, right? The same letters, the beginning letters of Yismuch HaShamayim V'Sagel Haaretz, that the heavens will be joyful and the earth will dance, right? That from happiness, right? So it's a huge simcha when we take even our limbs of our body, like it says, Kol atzmosai tarmarnu Hashem mikamocha, that every part of my body is going to scream out that nobody is like you, Hashem, right? That even in the lowest part of my body, even in the akev, the heel, the lowest part of my body, even that. And Hashem Yisbarach, we should be zocha that we should be able to come to that madrega, especially on Shabbos, to be able to have each and every part of even the lowest part of our body should be singing praises to Hashem and realizing that it's all from Hashem.